Welcome to the Brixton BookJam. We're broadcasting. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight, so grab a drink and relax. We are kicking off pretty much sharp at 8 p.m. Personally, I walked past the dark Hootenanny today and had a little, should we say, a moist spot in my eye for all the pubs that are closed. So I just want to give a shout out to the Hootenanny who supported us for 8 years with BookJam. Actually, this is year 9. So hopefully we'll be back in BookJam's home soon. But meanwhile, we've got a really great show for you today. 6 writers and a very wonderful Mick Artistik. We're going to have in set 1, Deserter, Kit Fan, and Salena Golden. Then Mick Artistik is going to give us a song or two, which on his accordion and sing along. And then in set 2, we've got Nikita, Gill, Courttia Newland, and Stella Duffy. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all of those wonderful writers. I'm going to introduce, first of all, in set 1, Deserter, who are actually 2 people who run an aspirational lifestyle website for those with a predilection for doing fuck all. Their first book, Today South London, Tomorrow South London, provided a comic alt guide to the right side of the river. Their new title, which they're currently crowdfunding for on the Unbound website, or have you finished already? Focuses on a philosophy based on work avoidance, messing about, daydreams, lovely pints, and opportunistic naps. Deserter is Andrew Grumbridge and Vince Raison, and you can find out all about them on Twitter at deserterblog or on deserter.co.uk. So without further ado, I hand over to Vince and Andy.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm Andy. Thank you, Zelda. Thanks for having us. Thanks for the intro. And yes, I'm the co-author of Today South London, Tomorrow South London, which I've got a copy of here. The everyday tales of a group of lovable slackers living their best life in South London. And in our new book, Shirt, Rest and Play, from which we're reading today, we learn more about the philosophies of this crew, Half-Life, Roxy, The Raider and Dirty South, the beliefs and strategies that underpin their lifestyle, and how you too might learn to embrace the deserter life at work, at home, and of course, at play. You can find it on unbound.com, where we're funding. Just search for Deserter or go to our website, deserter.co.uk. And here's a bit from chapter 1. What sort of person is this deserter? The deserter is not part of the herd, is different to the crowd. You might even say willfully abstruse, contrary. They are leaders, not followers, unless they are told to be leaders, at which point their only desire is to follow. They don't take no for an answer, nor indeed yes. Often they are unable to recall the question. Independent in thought and deed, you can spot a deserter sitting on the lawn with their shoes and socks off next to the notice that reads, "Keep off the grass." Confronted by a sign saying, "Turn left," the deserter will be overwhelmed by the urge to immediately turn right, or possibly turn back, or at the very least, stand stock still and spark up a fat one. They are free. Ones who, while you're squeezing onto a train to work, or on the other platform boarding an empty train marked Brighton or Kempton Park Races Special, or indeed any train that is going the other way. From what are they deserting, you may ask? Work, perhaps, or the rat race in general, society maybe, and certainly that which they are expected to do. They are not lazy per se, but it can sometimes be difficult to discern what exactly it is that they do. Their deserter will often struggle to answer questions about work or career at parties, but that is because they are the wrong questions. Ask not of a deserter, what do you do? Ask instead what they do not do. And you will receive an answer so fulsome, you may decide to get another drink, even though you haven't quite finished the one you're holding. The deserter is drawn to the easy life. even if this leads to stigma or the unconventional. In short, you might characterize the deserter as a rule breaker. Not the big rules like thou shalt not kill, but certainly the rule that states you must work diligently for 50 years, accept meager wages, and be unhappy. Which brings us to the fundamental characteristic of the deserter, the proactive seeking of pleasure. They have had enough of deferral and denial, enough of discipline and the towing of the line, enough salad and sparkling water. But crying out loud, they seem to be saying, pass the sausages. Thank you for listening to me. And I'm now going to hand over to Vinny, who I think you'll agree is looking radiant tonight.
Well, thank you, mate. Yes, I'm Vince. I'm Deserter's other half an author. And yes, looking at us, you won't be surprised to hear that there is a health and beauty chapter in our lifestyle guide. We have a complex relationship with diet and exercise and chips. But we're going to hear from Roxy, her exercise diary after she met Jan, a fitness instructor. Day 1, 8 a.m, wake with hideous hangover, coughing like an old hag. Give up smoking. Put on baggiest t-shirt, even though I think it's sad and futile when fat blokes do it. 9 a.m, meet Jan at the park. He is so bursting with sunshine and health, I want to punch him in his perfect teeth. He asks a lot of questions I don't like. No, I do not smoke, thank you very much. Yes, I do drink moderately. Occasionally. He weighs and measures me, then asks me to do as many press-ups as I can. I thought I did well with 3, and he agreed, which made me like him a bit more. Sit-ups, though. Look, I hired you to get me fit, yet I seem to be doing all the work. Every time I finish an exercise, he gets me to do another immediately. I think there's something wrong with him. After the trial, I am dying. It's been the hardest 20 minutes I have had since I tried to drive through Croydon on acid. He wants me to come back for 2 group sessions and a 1-to-1 every week and keep a food diary. I'm too tired to tell him to do one. On the stagger back, something strange happens. A virtuous tiredness washes over me. An hour after the session, I actually feel good. I'm disappointed with myself and go for a full English. The first group session, a mistake. I hate exercise, and now I'm in the company of a dozen people who like it. At least it's a mixed bunch. Some lardies, some princesses who look like they eat snowflakes for breakfast, and a bloke who looks like he drinks snowballs for breakfast. Can't keep up with anyone. Shattered. What do you mean this was just the warm-up? This is mental. Up, down, fuck my life. Now we're running, actually running. I told him I hate running. I hate him again with his easy gait and clothes that fit. First go round, I keep up with the strugglers, but what's this? We're going round again? By the final stretch, I am lagging far behind a monster wobble bottom. I am too ashamed to give up. Jan wants a word. The twat's going to sack me before I sack him. But no, he tells me I did really well to keep going. I'm like, do you really think so? Like I'm 12. Must be doing my brain in. Jan takes apart my food diary, pointing out the positive things first, like the salad in my kebab. Then he tells me a diet of toast, sandwiches and pizza is filling me up with empty calories that are accumulating on my hips. He's a doctor now, is he? Wanker. One-on-one, I prefer these sessions. I'm just not a team player. Even though I have to work harder, I start to like it. I get to make him laugh. I get to punch his pads really fucking hard. He treads on my feet for the sit-ups, which raises my eyes to his bulge level and gives me an incentive to get up there. I get to lie down as he stretches me. I ask him to move in. Living with Jan. I've lost 2 stone. I eat well and feel fantastic. The sex is great. I'm lighter on my feet. Everything physical is easier. And yet, well, first off, I like a glass of wine with a meal. Every meal. When we first went out, every night was a celebration. Then we got used to it. Jan started to have water and I am not getting pissed alone. Then he started doing yoga. He does it every day. He asked me to join him. He suggested I cut down on booze. I kick him into touch. So the moral is exercise is good for the body, booze is good for the soul, personal trainers are good for about 6 months. Thank you for listening, and if you'd like to support our project, please go to Unbound and search for Deserter.
Oh, thank you so much. That was really had me chuckling. So there we go. We've set the scenes from South London. The finest slackers give you a few tips on how to live life. And they're both alive and look pretty healthy, so they can't be doing everything wrong. So moving on, our next writer is Kit Fan, a novelist, poet and critic. Diamond Hill, his debut novel about Hong Kong, is published by Dialogue Books in May. He was shortlisted twice for the Guardian Fourth Estate BME Short Story Prize and as a winner of Northern Writers Award. Times Stephen Spender Poetry Translation Prize and Poetry Editors Prize for reviewing. You can find out all about his work at kitfan.net or follow him on Twitter at kitfan. So he's going to introduce his book to you now. Take it away, Kit.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. A very fond memory of Brixton, even though I live in York. I have good friends and
Sugar. Sorry.
and have I been unmuted now? Yes. Can you hear me again? Great. Don't worry. It happened to me all the time. You think we've learned it by now. I was just saying that I have a very fond memory of Brixton. Even though I live in York, I have good friends in Brixton and I come and stay with them. And quite near the Brixton Academy. So you can imagine we have sleep very well near it. So I'm going to talk about Diamond Hill. I'm very pleased to be among so many fellow authors that I really admire. Diamond Hill is my debut novel. It's set in Hong Kong in 1987. Just 3 years after Margaret Thatcher signed the Joint Declaration with Deng Xiaoping in 1984. And as some of you will remember, in 1989, something terrible happened in Beijing, in Tiananmen Square. So the novel was set just 2 years before what happened in Tiananmen. When I was writing the novel, I was kind of unconsciously remembering a line from the Irish poet Derek Mahon, who died this year. He said, "The home is where the heart breaks," and I feel like that, and increasingly so as well. Having lived, even though I lived in Britain for 20 years, as my family is still in Hong Kong. So I set out to write a book. Really, is trying to show a different face of Hong Kong. It's set in the last shanty town, actually quite central. Imagine Brixton being a shanty town, and that shanty town was going to be sold by the government and a lot of property developers, and that land is going to kind of be kind of sold and build kind of glitzy apartment blocks on it. So it's a lot about land ownership, but also about religion, because in the community of this shanty town, there's a Buddhist nunnery there. I also want to write a novel which is not from the angle of the expat community. I want to show readers kind of a side of Hong Kong that people don't normally see, which is about the daily life, but also poverty and people's struggle there. So I'm going to read, one thing about the novel is it has kind of Cantonese and Chinese dialect in it. I've chosen to include it partly because Cantonese, even though it's quite widely spoken, it is a language under threat, like many things in the world. It's not like the Amazon tribe languages yet, but it is under threat. I'm going to read about 5 minutes of Diamond Hill, mainly just give you glimpses of the beginning of the novel. It will introduce the character called Buddha, the protagonist, who is arriving in Diamond Hill. The first thing I heard when I arrived in Diamond Hill was a boy's cry coming from an alleyway that smelled of piss. The cry was short and low, as if the boy was swallowing his angry breath, as if he held a grudge against being born in this shanty town infested by mobs. It was before the season of thunder and cockroaches. I continued down the alley and searched for the path towards the hills without a clue which direction I was heading in. The journey from Bangkok to Hong Kong was tiring, though I had traveled light with little in my suitcase. I'd been sent by Dashi, an old monk in Bangkok who disappeared some months earlier. He saved me from death many times. The young monk in Wat Arun said he had gone to the mountains to meditate on the earth's sufferings. I waited and waited for him to return. He didn't, or wouldn't. Why did I wait for him? When he didn't show up after a month, I obeyed his command and ended up back here, where I began. I hated Hong Kong so much, I thought I would never set foot in this damn city again. Here I was, with nowhere else to go, seeking shelter in a nunnery. What the hell I was doing here? The shanty town was a maze, all its lanes and paths twisted and crisscrossed randomly. Most houses were wooden or metal shacks, one leaning precariously on another, each fitted with wafer-thin walls. Cardboard boxes were built on top of tin box houses, built on top of wooden houses. Red demolition notices were glued on all doors. Despite its hard edges, sociability was abundant everywhere. Lives traveled through the thin walls onto the narrow streets, children shrieking after winning a game of dice, food being tossed in walks, men cursing at an unlucky horse after a race in Happy Valley, plastic flip-flops clip-clopping on hard concrete floors. It was 2 years since I had set foot in Hong Kong, and it's already looked a different beast. Of course, the city still breathed money, but everyone knew what would happen in 10 years' time. On 1st of July 1997, the last colony of the British Empire will be handed over to China. Perhaps it was easier for me to be returned, knowing there was an expiry day of my home city. At the end of the alley, a dog was sniffing torn rubbish bags. He looked shit scared, like a drug addict. I wondered what I looked like in the eyes of a shit scared dog. Then Buddha arrives in the nunnery, and I'm going to give you the first brief conversation between the head nun and the protagonist. What is keeping you out there? A sharp voice echoed from inside the temple. Through a paper screen door, a flickering candle showed a figure on the right side of the temple. I took off my shoes and opened the screen. A middle-aged nun in a saffron robe sat in the lotus position, counting her prayer beads. She lifted her hand to indicate I should sit opposite her. It is a long-established custom that anyone waiting to join this nunnery needs to be purified by eating the same food for 7 times 7 days before they can enter the main temple. In the last week, they eat nothing to complete the purification. I have made an exception for you. I understand that 49 days would be too long for you. After all, you have no intention of being one of us. Even if you did, you cannot. Thank you for starving me. Purified by eating the same food for 7 times 7 days. There's a feedback. Is it better? Okay, I'll continue. She only looked into my eyes once she had stopped speaking. Thank you for starving me. I appreciate you allowing me to stay here. How is Dashi in Wat Arun? He disappeared without a word. The monk said he had left Bangkok to become a hermit and is hiding in Dopei Mountain in Chiang Mai. He hates Chiang Mai, At his age, the mountain would mean his death. Dashi is very healthy for his age. There's no reason he would leave that Wat Arun because he was dying. He has been dying since last year, didn't you know? Lung cancer is spread everywhere. No hope. He wrote to me a month ago asking me to take you in. He said you needed to make peace with your past. I finally wrote back telling him what a load of rubbish. No man has ever stayed in this nunnery. It was untypically sentimental of him to talk about making peace with the past. The cancer must have gone to his head. The head nun was meditating with her prayer beads. I put on my sandals to leave and stood at the hallway looking out to the blinking shanty town. The developers have bought Diamond Hill from the government, and the entire shanty town will be demolished to give way to luxury apartment blocks. How with the nunnery? The cranes are almost as your footsteps. The place is as old as the hills. It's sacred. Nobody would dare steal an inch of my nunnery. I will protect it with my last breath. Of course, the shanty town is a totally different story. It isn't that bad there. People look contented with what they've got. There is poverty in every city in the world. I've seen worse in Bangkok. Zhang Dai Ji Wa, a toad at the bottom of a well, an ignorant man. I didn't respond. I didn't mean you. Dashi told me you came from a good family. You're an educated man. You should know the shantytown is behind the times. The development is for the greater good. These are people's homes. They will be uprooted, and where would they go? They will drift like dandelion seeds. Thank you.
Oh. What is happening?
I'm unmuted. So I'm going to welcome Salena next. Thank you so very much for that. That was a great reading. I felt like I was really in Hong Kong in those narrow streets with all the little wooden buildings. It must be very evocative. So I'm going to introduce now Salena Golden, who I'm sure all of you will probably be familiar with. She's a high-profile poet and a broadcaster, essayist, and memoirist whose work's been widely anthologized. The Royal Society of Literature made her a fellow in November 2020, and her new novel, or her debut novel, in fact, I'm actually surprised almost that she hasn't written one before, Mrs. Death, is coming out this month. It's been picked already as a bookseller's editor's choice, a NetGalley book of the month, and recommended on the Sky Arts Book Club. It's described in the bookseller as an original, exuberant novel, freewheeling from prose to poetry to non-fiction, truly one of a kind. Canongate published Mrs. Death on the 28th of this month, so you'll be able to get your hands on it. But we're lucky enough to have her reading it here for us this evening. Take it away, Salena.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Okay. All right. Let me see. So this is my book. It's my debut novel, Mrs. Death. I'm not going to give you too much intro. I'm just going to kind of let the book speak for itself. So the book starts with a disclaimer. It's when you're going to write about death. Quite a lot of people have kind of got ideas of what death means and how to talk about death and the ritual of death. So I started the book with a disclaimer, and it goes like this. Disclaimer. This book contains dead people. This book cannot see the future. This book is dabbling in the past. This book is not about funerals although funerals are mentioned. You do not have to wear black to read this work. You do not have to bring flowers. Caution. This work contains traces of eulogy. Warning. This work contains violent deaths. Spoiler alert. We will all die in the end. This book cannot change the ending or your ending or its own ending. This book does not know how to switch on the light at the end of the tunnel. This book cannot contact the other side. This book cannot speak to the dead or for the dead. This book will not confirm if there is an afterlife or an alternative universe. This book will not improve your karma. This book will not nag you to live a healthier life. This book will not help you quit smoking. This book is not going to urge you to age gracefully. This book does not advocate the use of that funereal phrase, "he had a good innings." This book does not contain any person or persons clapping their hands and singing, "Kumbaya, my lord." This book may be used for mild to moderate relief from grief, fear, and pain. However, if symptoms persist, please buy a ticket to see a live reading of this work where you will find the others. Here we are, all together, just as I pictured it. Caution, do not exceed death. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit more. And so in this book, Mrs. Death, Death is a woman, a black woman. And I'm just going to read a paragraph of what her voice sounds like to me. The greatest trick man played was making you believe I was a man. They erased me and made you all believe that death was male in spirit, the grim reaper in a black hood with a scythe. Remarkable that nobody questioned it, really, don't you think? For surely only she who bears it, she who gave you life, can be she who has the power to take it. The one is she, and only she who is invisible can do the work of death. And there is no human more invisible, more readily talked over, ignored, betrayed, and easy to walk past than a woman, than a poor old black woman. A homeless black beggar woman with knotty, natty hair, broken back, walking ever so slow, pushing a shopping trolley full of plastic bottles. Death is plastic. Plastic is death. So that's a tiny bit from Mrs. Death speaking. And then Mrs. Death makes friends with a writer, and they have this strange friendship. The writer is called Wolf, and Wolf is a working class, troubled writer who's in lots of emotional pain and trauma, has seen a lot of trauma, and is drawn to having conversations with death and tries to write death's memoirs. And I was going to read this tiny bit here and then I'll pass it on. Do stick around for everyone that's performing. Mick Artistik's amazing. Stella Duffy, Nikita, Gill, Courttia Newland. Oh my God, this lineup is fantastic. I'm just going to read this last paragraph and then I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. So this is when Wolf's starting to catch on that he's making, that there's something going on. I'm trying not to give too much away. Okay, this is Wolf, just one paragraph. Okay. Mrs. Death sees me. Mrs. Death sold me tobacco. Mrs. Death lives in my cigarettes. Mrs. Death is everywhere. She is hiding in plain sight. She is the working woman. She works in the shops and in the markets and laundrettes and factories. Mrs. Death is the woman we hardly see, the woman we do not care to see. She is the person we ignore. She is the pause in the silence. She is the invisible woman. She is the refugee at the border. She is the cleaner. She is the cab driver. She is the backing singer we never bothered to learn the name of. She is nobody. She is everybody. She is the homeless person begging for change outside the train station. Mrs. Death is the spirit of the ignored and the saint of the betrayed. She is the first woman. Mrs. Death is the first mother of all mothers. She is calling to us all now. She is weeping. She is cradling her crumbling world. She is holding this toxic and wounded planet to her cold breast. She's sitting next to you on the bus. She is amongst us. I got it wrong. Mrs. Death is not the wife of death, no. And she is not the mother of death, oh no. She is death, and she gets the final say. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salena. That was great.
It was lovely. Thank you.
What a brilliant first set that was.
Thank you.
Really brilliant. Okay. So normally at this moment we would send everyone off for a brief pint, but hopefully everybody's stacked up with all of their pints. And I'm just going to mute everyone for a sec, except me. And thank everyone. Thank Kit, Vince, Andy, and Stella for that lovely first set. Now, not Stella, sorry. I'm not quite managing that today. Salena, sorry. The next thing we've got just a big treat for you. Mick Artistik is going to do a musical set for us. Now, I haven't asked Mick what he's going to present, but I'll just tell you a little bit about him while he's tuning up and queuing. And that's cool, you're not muted. Here we go. So he's a man of many parts. He's a poet, performer, artist, and comedian that I was lucky enough to first see live in a working men's club in kind of on the borders of East London. He's played Glastonbury for the last 12 years, was featured on BBC iPlayer highlights, supported Faust, Chas and Dave, played the London Fashion Show and Batley Rugby Club. Not everyone can say that. And is loved by all stroke some. Well, I would say all, actually. I've never met anyone that didn't like him, including Iggy Pop, who named his song Sweet Leaf of the North as Song of the Decade. He's got a new book out, well, relatively new, of his wicked sketches of musical and artistic figures. So I'm going to put some links in the chat to that so you can go and have a look. And without further ado, take it away, Mick.
Hello, good evening. This is my Sharpie. Say hello to the Sharpie there. Then it happened and it fell off. And then when I tried to stick it back on again, got a hippo in my pocket. It's a plastic toy. All the kids are grown up. This one's for me. I found it in the street. It was covered in muck. If you give it a squeeze, its eyes swell up. I'm going to take it on home. I'm going to give it a wash. I'm going to stick it on the shelf. It's like my three-legged horse. I never had a lot of toys when I was a boy. I don't care what my wife says. This one's for me. I got a hippo in my pocket. It's a plastic toy. All my kids are grown up. This one's for me. I found it in the street. It was covered in muck. You give it a squeeze. Its eyes swell up. I'm going to stick it on home. I'm going to give it a wash. I'm going to stick it on the shelf. It's my three-legged horse. I never had toys when I was a boy. I don't care what my wife says. He's a professor. He's got a pair of brown brogues. He studied for a long time. He's a professor, and he's a friend of mine. He's just finishing his seminar, And all the students think he's a star. And no one ever vandalizes his car. He's a professor, and he's a friend of mine. He's got a lot of letters after his name. But he doesn't brag about it. He's not interested in fortune and fame. When he sees me in the pub, he says, "Hello, Graham." He's a professor, and he's a friend of mine. This is my new book, and it's mustard coloured, and it's called It's Irrelevant, and it's got stories about people that me and my friend Robert Galletta love. My friend Robert, I've been going out with him for years, knocking around with him, and right from 1976, and he was a mod, an old mod, and he loved Tamla Motown and doing screen printing, and we both loved punk, and we both loved girls and women, and but we were no good with them. We could never find girls and women, so we just fell in love with music, and we'd have lots of conversations about music and art. And Robert said one day, he said to me, Michael, he said, "Why don't we do a book about all these people that we love?" This is about a few months ago, just before the lockdown, and before we die, and I said, "Yeah, let's do that." So, and he says, "You do some drawings and I'll do some writing." And I said, "No, I'll do some drawings and I'll do some writing and you do some writing." So he said, "Okay." So we got somebody here, we've got, that's a lady with a cigarette. She's called Eve Steele. I'm just going to read you about Eve Steele, all right? Right. Me and Kath, my girlfriend, turned up in this mill to watch Johnny, our guitarist. We'd just got a drink and we were going to find a seat. This woman came on stage in sportswear, very spare, hair pulled back, no props apart from a CD player, just her for an hour. She rambled, she chortled, swore, she danced across the stage, she pretended to smoke. She played a man, a difficult man, a thief, a bruised man, a composite of men she'd known, all the way from childhood to death. It was transfixing. She never drew breath, never broke character. I never got to sit down. So that's Eve Steele. And there's quite a few others as well. There's that's somebody called Rolling Hunt. So a lot of the people in this book are fairly obscure. They're probably going to die penniless. There's Andy Prowler. He's a harp player, and he's another struggling older man now. He had found it very difficult to make friends, but he's very good at music. So a lot of desperate old men and women in this book. And I'm going to do another poem for you now, and I hope you like it. Vegetarian, missing from home, ran off and sitting in a breakfast cafe all alone. Got a full English pile on his plate, black pudding, kidneys, and a scone for afters. Looking out the window at a quick fit garage, wondering why he ran away. Vegetarian, takes a little walk, spends a fortune on the bandits and a stupid tattoo. 20 quid in scratch cards and a cube on his arm. A cube on his arm. What was he thinking? 20 quid in scratch cards, and he's dyed his hair. It was a row with his mum that set him off. Words were said. He finally left. Walked for hours, turning things over in his head. He could go to his friends. He had options. He had a couple of options. What would he do when the money ran out? He'd never been poor. He'd never been needy. He'd always had money, a roof over his head, mulling it over with his brand new tattoo. He could go to Malaga, sit on the beach, get a taxi to the airport, sleep on a bench. Caught between a rock and a hard place. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. 20 quid in scratch cards, it gives him a shuffle. Reaches in his pocket for his 10p. 20 quid in scratch cards and an itchy arm. He's hoping he'll win, hoping he's lucky. There's a church across the street, the door's ajar. He could sit in the dark with his scratch cards, say a prayer for his sister, say a prayer for his mum, say a prayer for himself, say a prayer for a plan. Vegetarian, missing from home, ran off and sitting in a breakfast cafe all alone. Nurses his tea, nurses his scone. He's worried. That's vegetarian. There's something else now. Is it just you watching, Nikita and Zelda? Just you two? Oh no, there's Andrew as well. It feels quite apocalyptic, this. It's like the last gig I ever do before Miss Death turns up. Right, there's another one here for you now.
Yeah, there's lots of people here, don't worry.
All right.
37.
All right, okay, well, I'll do something. Oh, here's another one for you.
We're running slightly tight just because the first set was a bit long.
Tell me what to do, Zelda.
Yeah, we might have to switch on, otherwise we'll run out of time at the end. But
So
I'd love to get you back on at the end when we've got the rest of the writers on. Is that cool?
Right, so can I do one more, or are you going to just go straight on?
We're running a little bit, so if you could do another one after they've read, if that's cool.
I will. I'll take my glasses off as well. Okay, there you go.
Okay, wicked. Thanks, Mick. We'll be
All
back
right.
to Mick in a bit. Thank you very much for that. That was Mick Artistik, who's going to maybe get his accordion out, hopefully, at the end and play us out of the performance. But I'm just going to switch to set 2 now to introduce to you Nikita Gill, who's a writer and illustrator who lives in the south of England. She's given a TEDx talk, performed at Edinburgh Book Fest, Cheltenham, Ledbury, and many others. And she's written 5 poetry collections and 1 novel in verse. She's been shortlisted also for the Goodreads Choice Awards twice. So Nikita's going to read 5 minutes or so of her debut novel, and we're very pleased to have her here. So let me just cue up Nikita. And
Hello.
off you go. Hi.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. There have been so many brilliant authors, and all of them have done such a wonderful job of I can't wait to buy all the books. My bank account is already crying because I spend a lot of money buying books. I'm going to read from The Girl and the Goddess, which is my debut novel in verse. And the book basically is about a young girl called Paro. And I actually am in this strange position where I was born in Northern Ireland and my family is from Kashmir. Both places were partitioned. And that the impact and the generational trauma of that is one of the things that I cover in this book. But this little girl basically goes through life being visited by the Hindu goddesses and various Hindu deities. I'm going to read a little bit from the beginning of the book. And yeah. A secret from me to you. There's a thing you should know before reading this tale. Despite my best efforts, I still do not know how to love myself. But here is the secret that no one told me. It's okay. It's okay to feel like you're drowning inside your own bones sometimes. It's okay to weep like a sky devoured by a storm. It's okay to be aware that there are wounds in you still that you aren't letting heal. Survival is ugly. Healing is messy. Self-love is complicated. It is your hardest days as much as your best days that help you grow. All of this is part of being human. You and I, we do not need to learn alone when we can learn together. How to be gentle with ourselves, how to be kinder to ourselves, especially when life feels like it is more endings than beginnings. Here is another secret no one will tell you. There aren't any masters of self-love, not even the goddesses and gods themselves. Bachpan, childhood. There are only 2 kinds of magic given to humans in this world. One is love. The other is prayer. My mother makes pilgrimage to Vaishno Devi before I am born. The first time my mother practices her magic, it is before the goddess under her mountain's care. With folded henna-covered hands and eyes closed, she speaks about the child in her womb in prayer. In a cave where everything is fragranced with water, she asks for a daughter instead of praying for a son. Asks for a girl with eyes so dark, the moon herself, and begs to live within them. Asks for a daughter with hair as opaque as a minor bird's throat. When she first learns to speak, sing. Let her be stronger, so much stronger than me. Let this baby have your fearlessness, Mother Goddess, the same mettle, the same ease that you had when you brought your enemies to their knees. Give this to her, and she will no longer be my child, for I promise her to you. We are a spiritual people. When we make the long pilgrimage to the mountain goddess, so many of our prayers come true. Whether we are the masters of manifestation or our gods really do listen, this I leave to you. Oh, and this is the illustration that goes with. I'll just read one more poem and then I'll give it back to you. So, the one of many names. Maybe the ancients were right when they said God's test is hiding in everything we cannot explain. Maybe this is why, when I am an infant, I say God's name first. I am too young to know the differences between religions. I am too young to understand religious tensions between Hindus and Muslims. My family is Hindu. We live in Kashmir. This means things. It is dangerous for everyone, no matter what faith we are, to feel safe here. Yet, this is the only home we have all ever known. Once, long ago, we were all friends, neighbors, family to each other. Now, old wounds paint the ground we live on crimson. Old grudges shape narratives into weapons of mistrust. But what do babies know about religious beliefs and warfare? Children are sponges, they say. They repeat what they hear. I say God's name because the most soothing voice I hear comes from a mosque close to this house that we live in. Every morning, a clear, dulcet voice wakes me from my childish dreams. It sends a prayer to my ears the moment I open my eyes. Isn't that miracle enough? Should it matter if the name spoken is Allah or Ganesh, if your morning begins with God's name? That's it. Thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate being here.
Oh, that was lovely. Everyone is unmuted. Thank you so very much. That was beautiful.
Wonderful.
Love you, Nikita.
That was brilliant.
Love you guys. Love you, Salena.
Well done.
Yeah. Cool. So that was, we've got two more writers lined up for you, and then hopefully we'll have a bit more music after that. Courttia Newland is the next writer that I'm going to introduce. He is author of 9 books, including his much lauded debut, The Scholar. His latest novel has just come out last week, and it's called A River Called Time. And apart from, I think that's what he's going to read to us today. But as well as that, he's written many short stories which have appeared in anthologies and been broadcast on BBC Radio 4. He's won the Taylor Barbaras Award for science fiction writing and the Roland Rees Bursary for playwriting. As a screenwriter, he's written 2 episodes of the new Steve McQueen series, Small Axe, which has recently been aired. So without further ado, I bring to you Courttia Newland, who is ready to go.
Hello.
Oh, your camera's
Hello,
not
hold on.
on.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't get my camera on for some reason. It's saying I can't start
It's
video
okay.
because
You should be able to now. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you.
Ah.
Oh, here I am.
Hi,
Yay.
Courttia.
So, hello. Hey, everyone. Like, so amazing, the readings and the music and the illustrations from Mick, and I've enjoyed everyone. It's been so good to hear you guys and feel part of a kind of artistic literary community It's just so brilliant. So thank you guys. It makes me feel like I'm out again. So that's such a lovely feeling. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant. Thank you so much. I really needed this. I didn't realize how much I needed it until I was listening to it. You know, it's just amazing. As you can see, I'm not Shamila Chauhan, which is what it says underneath that. That's my wife. I am me, Courttia. I am going to read from my new novel, A River Called Time. And basically, this is a novel set in a parallel world where slavery and colonization never happened. And because slavery and colonization never happened, African cosmology has become the dominant religion. So ancestor worship, out-of-body experiences, spirituality, things of that nature are just normal. It's commonplace, and it's they take place all around the world, and all kind of spiritual traditional religions, all religions of all kinds are respected and tolerated. That doesn't mean that things are completely great. This novel takes place in an alternate London called Dinium, where the class divide between rich and poor is really stark. And in the middle of central London, inner city London, is a huge building called the Ark. And most of the rich live in this building called the Ark, and the poor live outside in a kind of polluted, ghettoized city where it's crime-ridden, the air is difficult to breathe, people are walking around in face masks. So it's been really weird over the last year to see all the face masks, because I was writing about that in 2002 when I first began this novel. It's taken me 18 years to actually get to the end of the novel. Yeah, I've been writing it literally my whole career. I had the first idea for it after my first book. I finished it last year. So this means so much to me to have this book in my hands and to be supported by Hannah and Own It, Krista Mahay Morgan, and Canongate. Everyone at Canongate has just been super brilliant. So yeah, it's a real dream to have this book in my hands, even for a jaded old author like me. So, yeah, it's been brilliant. So I'm just going to read from the first chapter, because then I have to, it's so complicated, this novel, it's a huge thing. Here it is, and yeah, it's really huge. So I'm just going to read from the beginning, because then I don't have to explain anything. So, yeah, and I hope you enjoy. Void, hum, 360 degrees expansion, pervading known and unknown matter. Breath, existence, him. The first time he was struck by a spontaneous Nambula, Marcus Denny was 8 years old. Feet pushing hard on pedals, body leaning against handlebars, the wheels of the bike ahead glistening with sunlight. His attention was seized, and for a moment he saw the heavens in that shimmering rotation. He couldn't take his eyes away. There was pain in the center of his forehead. He was falling from his bike before he knew it. He must have blacked out, because the next thing he knew, he was lying on the pavement, elbows and knees raw, the bike a resting animal a yard or so from where he'd fallen. His friends stood over him. Tashari, Karis, Nesta. Marcus let them wrench him to his feet, limping back to his fallen metal steed, waving away their concern, their insistence that he looked pale. Soon they rode in unison again, creaking gears and turning wheels, a random symphony beneath them. They stopped outside rusting gates propped open with fallen masonry. Flakes of orange made the once grand entrance look diseased. Grass and weeds stood as high as their waists. A slight breeze made the strands rustle like the whisper of ghosts. They sat on their bikes, staring at blighted metal. Silent. Nesta edged forward, his thin bicycle tire nudging the gate. He rolled over crumbled stones, standing and stamping on the pedals to gain more power, until he was over the obstruction inside. They followed one after another. Marcus, Karis, and Tashari, the skinniest child, always last, lifting his chin towards graffitied walls, brow arched and fearful. The building was huge, not compared to the Ark, of course, though it towered above their heads 4 stories high. They rode through warped frames of wooden doors into the main entrance hall, craning their necks to look at the roof. Fallen glass left the dusty brown sky exposed. Their school picture books showed chandeliers and birds wheeling overhead, but the boys saw neither. They got used to being alone, speeding up and down once polished marble floors, performing wheelies and long skids, creating miniature desert storms. When they grew bored, they explored alone. Marcus rode past closed ticket booths and parades of empty shops to the platforms where sleek grand trains once stood. He left his bike against a marble bench and jumped onto the tracks amongst long grass. Some of the weeds were long green strands that looked like wheat. He lay against the cool skill, trying to imagine what it must have been like. The olden days. He closed his eyes. The mute disk of sun hadn't moved by much when he woke. Marcus guessed he hadn't been sleeping long. He climbed back onto the platform, studying the multicolored lines of the Dinian route map, wheeling his bike into the entrance hall. There was no one. He thought they might have left, panicked for a moment, and then heard voices. Relief made him sag against handlebars. He smiled and hummed a soft tune, wheeling his bike in that direction. An open corridor, doors long ripped away or kicked down, black-edged shadows. He paused, biting his lip. The rectangle of light at the opposite end was small and far. Gloom seeped. Marcus called into the expanse. No answer. Partly, he was glad. The faraway voices of his friends reached beyond dark, spun cotton whisks, distant. He made up his mind, rolling over broken glass and wood, careful into the solid length of night. Daylight seemed consumed by that murky length of corridor. He saw nothing, his own physicality mythical. The only knowledge he existed came from the warmth of his handlebars beneath his fingers, his own harsh breath. The beat inside his chest, hot blood. The corridor smelt musty, damp and old. Marcus could taste the odour. He covered his mouth, pushing with one hand, which made the going even tougher. The floor beneath him, thick with dust. He repeatedly bumped his tire against what felt like heavy blocks of concrete. His bike wheel stuck. He pushed again. Still nothing. Again. No luck. He climbed aboard the pedals, resolving to do what Nesta had, stand up and push down hard. There was a moment before he did this when Marcus had an inkling of what was to come. An image of himself and his friends sprinting on bikes, screaming, faces static. Metallic banging from a place he could not find, like a football smashing against a chain-link fence. A chuckling peal of laughter somewhere beyond his peripheral vision. He felt the sound in his stomach, an ache. Thank you. I'll leave it there. Thanks so much.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Thank you.
I can't wait to read all of that book.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you.
Amazing that it's finally coming out.
It is. It's really, yeah. It's a weight off, I tell you that.
Show the cover, it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I will. Thanks, Nikita. I really like your reading as well. There's so much parallels as well between what we're writing, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe not entirely accidental.
Yeah, exactly. Not at all.
Well, that was brilliant. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We've got a really amazing treat next, which is the very first reading of a new book by Stella Duffy. It has not been read to the public ever before, so that's really exciting. She is, in case Stella needs any introduction, she's an award-winning writer with over 70 short stories, 15 plays written and devised, and 17 novels published in 15 languages. So quite an inspiration to those of us that are starting out in the craft, shall we say. She's worked in theatre for over 35 years as an actor, director, playwright, and facilitator. And she's the co-founder of the Fun Palaces campaign, supporting community connection. I don't know where she finds the time, but she's also a yoga teacher, runs yoga for writing workshops, and in her second year of training to be an existential psychotherapist. Her new novel, Lullaby Beach, is published by Virago on February the 4th, but you get an exclusive, special, never-before-heard preview of it here. So without further ado, may I present to you Stella Duffy.
Hello. Yes, look, it's got a lovely cover. This is the proof. My publicist and everyone else has got the actual book. I've just got the proof so far, but it's got the words. It's also got the typos. So, you know, they always go for a lot more money on eBay. Grab yourselves a proof, people. Put them up against the next pandemic. Okay, so I'm going to stand up. I normally stand up to read, so I'll stand up. Yeah, I'm really nervous because I've never read from this before, and I did rehearse it. I rehearsed 3 different bits this afternoon to make sure they were the obligatory 5 minutes. And then I've been going, oh shit, which one? Because everyone else is too fucking good. But anyway, I will read you this bit, which is not too early on, but it's not too late. This book is set in 1956, 1990, and 20 now. And I would recommend never ever setting a book in 3 different time periods, because that means you have to edit it at least 5 times to make any sense of it. So to anybody who's thinking, sounds great, don't do it to yourselves. It's evil. Anyway, Kitty's this young girl from a small seaside town that shall be nameless. Danny is the bloke who gets her up to London. Ernestine is the just arrived, well, she's been here for 3 months, Jamaican neighbour who lives downstairs. Kitty's kind of all the way through the book. Ernestine's on and off all the way through the book, and Danny's a wrong'un. This is just after Danny's hit Kitty for the first time. It's kind of a book about the epigenetics of abuse. And it's probably taken me my whole life to get around to writing this. So if this is the last one, that's pretty true to far too many things that I and far too many women I know and some other men know too well. When Danny came back, he was in a great mood. He bounded up the stairs and bumped into Ernestine, who was on her way out. She took a small step back, looking at the bunch of roses in his hand. "Peace offering?" she asked. Danny grinned. "You want to get a life of your own, love. Taking too much of an interest in other people's business might be all right where you lot come from, but we're a bit more civilized here." Ernestine raised an eyebrow. "Civilized? Is that what you call it?" "I'll call things what I want in my own country, thank you very much. I don't need the likes of you coming over." Ernestine raised her hand, and Danny surprised himself by shutting up. "I've heard it all before, Mr. Nelson. If you don't mind, I have work to go to." She clipped past him in her heels and walked smartly down the stairs. Danny watched her go, wondering how she'd so easily made him feel suddenly small. She had something of his old man about her, that one. He frowned and shook it off. Kitty would make him feel better. Danny threw open the door, a wide smile on his face. He handed Kitty the roses, so dark they were almost black. When he leaned in to kiss her, she could smell the beer on his breath, the cigarette he'd just put out. She kissed him back and he held her very tight, crushing the roses between them. She tried out the lines she'd been practicing for the past half hour. "I'm ever so sorry, Danny." He leaned his cheek against hers, spoke quietly. "What are you sorry for, Kit?" Then he stepped back just a little, put his hand under her chin and lifted her face. He stroked her jawline and cheekbone, bent his head again to lay soft, nuzzling kisses against the cheek he had only just slapped. Her words came slowly. "I know I look a mess when I get in from work, and you might think the blokes are all over me, but honest, they're just interested in their food. And the grease gets in my hair. I don't smell elegant or sophisticated like you like. I'm sorry. I want to be here ready for you. I do." He shook his head, and she thought for a moment he was going to go for her again. And then he stepped back, took the roses from her and put them in the sink. He was whistling as he unwrapped them and poured water into the tallest glass she had, pushing the stems down into it. Kitty thought she would cut the stems later. She'd meant to get a proper vase, but there never seemed to be a moment free. He broke off whistling to say over his shoulder, "You're as daft as they come sometimes, Kitty Barker, you really are. I'm not fussed about you working, love. I'm proud my girl wants to pay her way. We're a team, you and me. It's not about your job, not a bit of it." He set the roses down on the scratched old worktop, and she hoped they wouldn't topple, shattered the glass, send water all over the floor. "Try again." He turned, his face clear and his eyes direct. "Why are you sorry, Kit?" Kitty stared at him, opened her mouth and closed it again. She stuttered and stammered and stopped. She had no idea what to say. Then Danny burst out laughing. "My word, your face, I had you there, girl." "What?" He bounded across the room and spun her round. "I'm the one who should be sorry, Kit. That's why I brought the flowers. I don't give a damn about the smell of the fry-ups. I miss you something awful when I'm back in Westmere. I just want to be with you, love. I'm a rotten bastard and I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?" And his eyes were so wide and his touch so gentle and his words so sweet that Kitty tumbled into him, her whole self reaching towards him, and she still had no idea what she'd done wrong. It didn't matter, Danny wanted her now. Over the next few months, Kitty became accustomed to hiding the stain of a slap beneath a sweep of hair or a thicker layer of powder, long sleeve blouses to cover the bruises on her arms or wrists, bruises she felt odd about, both interested and distant. She was drawn to touching them during the day, feeling the weight of her fingers on a sore point, like touching the brown dent in a bruised apple, a sense that she might go through her if she pushed hard enough. And then touching the bruise became a talisman. Kitty could push against the shaded place and feel the sick, sweet sense of an ache just beneath her skin. In hurting where Danny had hurt, she could feel herself. Thank you.
Amazing!
That was scary.
So good. Right, Stella, thank you.
I mean, fucking great.
Very enjoyable.
That was a very powerful reading. Thank you. Really beautiful. We're very privileged to have heard that first, I think. So I'd also want to thank all of the writers who've just been brilliant today. Just such a variety of really beautifully written, insightful and different pieces, like all the different unique voices that we've been lucky enough to have today. So I'm just going to do a roll call of honour. So thank you to Deserter, who started us off in South London, and then Kit, who transported us to Hong Kong and to the tastes and the smells and the sounds. Salena, who really took us into a completely different view of what death is. And I think I'm really looking forward to seeing that book when it comes out. Mick's going to come back and hopefully give us a song to play us out of BookJam for the first one of 2021, and will be the first of more to come. Thank you to Nikita for taking us to the foothills of the Himalayas and sharing her beautiful poetry with us. And Courttia for taking us into a dystopian future, which is what I hope does not await us, because it sounded like a really scary place to be, especially if you don't live in the Ark. And finally, Stella, what a really beautiful and compassionate view of why women deal with abuse. I'm really looking forward to reading that book too. So I'm just going to unmute everyone so we can give the biggest, loudest, most enthusiastic round of applause. Thank you to all our lovely writers. Brilliant start to 2021. We may be locked up, but our spirit is unloud. So I'm hoping, Mick, that you've got your recording queued up. So just, that's it, mute yourself.
It's making a strange little noise, like a little kind of robot mouse. I'm looking at you, lot looking at me. You've got lovely teeth, you've got lovely eyes. I want your hair, I want your crowns, I want your money, I want your Christmas cake. You're far away, I'm screaming at you. Will you send me a letter? Please send me a letter. Signed, Dear Mick. We think you're fabulous. Here's 20 quid. Buy a Valentine. Right, anyway, get back to the fucking sit there. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Thank you for all the things that you tried to do tonight to communicate with me. I'm fascinated by your faces and your living rooms. My house is shabbier than yours, but I don't mind because I love it. I'm in love with my living room. It smells of cats, it smells of cheese, and it's very high. It's very high. I don't know, is it Tuesday? Is it Friday? Is it Monday? I think it's Monday, it must be Monday. You live in London, I live in Leeds. You live in London, I live in Leeds. There's some people who live in Scotland and they're not here tonight. Well, that's too bad. I haven't seen, or is that a cat you've got? Is that a cat you've got, Zelda? She's got a cat. She's got a black cat. I hope
I've got 4 cats.
Cat brings us luck. I hope the black cat makes us dream really nice dreams. I hope we get through this fucking lockdown in one piece with all our lungs intact. I want to run on the canal. I want to see the ducks walking on the ice like royalty. Like royalty. I want to see the ducks walking on the ice, relax like Fred Astaire. It's nearly February. It could be August. Thank you very much. I'll do one more. I'm just going to do that was something else. That wasn't part of the, I'm going to do We'll Meet Again, Don't Know Where, Don't Know When. Are you ready?
That's very appropriate.
All right, here we go. All right, here we go. These people have families. These people. Oh, hang on, what's this? These people have families. These people have. Oh, that's the. I've got it now. Yeah, sorry. These people have families. These people have mouths to feed. These people are just the same as you and me. They may be all the rage. They may be always on stage. They may be on the front page, but they're just like you and me. These people have feelings. These people have massive gates. These people have electrified gates. These people are lonely. They may have a flat in Berlin. When you knock, there's nobody in. But these people are just the same as you and me. These people have deer on their wall. These people, they go to the ball. Their car makes a clicking sound. Their Kanye West tickets haven't arrived. They may have a villa in Spain. These people, they suffer pain. These people are just the same as you and me. As you and me. As you and me. Thank you. God bless you all.
Hey.
Irrelevant.
2021, everyone. It can only get better.
Yeah.
Thank you so
bless
much.
you all. Well done.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Really loved it.
So that's it for tonight, I'm afraid. It's been really fun. I've enjoyed it. because we haven't done one of these for a while, but as long as people are locked up, we'll be doing them regularly. So I'll be watch a space for the info about the next one, and we'll bring you many more writers to light up your gloomy days. So once again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Zelda.
You're welcome anytime.
Oh, excuse me.
Thanks,
Classy as always.
Bye.
Promise, Scott.
Well done, Darren.
Right, Zelda, well done.
Thanks, Ivor. Lovely to see you.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll
your
drop you-
avatar.
I really enjoyed it. I'll drop you an email.
Wicked. All right. Nice to see you too, Stevie.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
I'm waving, but you can't see me.
Oh, I can hear you waving.